What we
Appreciate that. With Board of Adjustment.
Yes.
All right then. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call to order the Thursday, July 8th, 2021 Watertown City Board of Adjustment meeting. Can I get a roll call?
Hanson.
Here.
Aletsky.
Present.
Dargits Johnson.
Here.
Spire.
Here.
Dolly.
Here.
And then Ford. Kays. Oh gosh, I didn't write these guys down. Cohane. And Brink are absent. We have a quorum. Thank you for that help.
All right. Thank you, Brandy. Moving on, item 3 on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the June 24th, 2021 meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion on those before we take a vote? Everybody had a chance to review them? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote.
All right, Hanson.
Yes.
Aletsky.
Yes.
Dargits Johnson.
Yes.
Spire.
Yes.
Dolly.
Yes. Motion carries. Item 4 on the agenda is the open public comments period. We'll have that later on in the meeting. If you'd like to speak on something that's not on the agenda today, you can go ahead and sign up there in the room or notate it on the teams. We'll ask for that in a minute. Moving on to item 5 is new business. We have a conditional use and variance request, Brandy.
Yes, and that's it is under new business. So this is part of the regular.
Structured a little bit different than normal.
This is the regular agenda item. So, are you good with me going with it?
Yep, go ahead.
All right, so this one is a combination. We have a conditional use and a variance request for Blue Tide Car Wash. And the owner is Jeremy Christofferson with RSA Architecture and Design. And the property that they're looking at incorporating this use on is within East Park's second edition. And in the recent past, we had another car wash conditional use, again, in the C3 Highway Commercial District. That is what this property is zoned. And so it incorporates all of Lot 2 and then the east 79.86 feet of Lot 1, Block 1 of East Park Second. So if you can see on this map here, that portion of Lot 1, so that Lot 1, 2, 3, and 4 within East Park Second Edition. So that is this property is also within the Gateway Overlay District, which brings us to the variance request. So if we pull up the site plan that is being proposed, you'll see that, and we've also dealt with this in 2019 when Holiday Inn Express came forward. They had to ask for a variance for the transitional yards. In the Gateway Overlay District, we require a 10-foot transitional yard that is to be not encroached upon and just left as grass area. So that is when it's on the rear and the side yard setbacks. So if you can see here, they're showing where that 10 feet is for those transitional yards. And then to reflect on the discussion that Plan Commission had in 2019 was that we wanted to revisit those transitional yards because of how it has impacted people's designs, and that if it's really necessary, they were implemented. It's really for aesthetics, but we also have additional or greater aesthetic requirements with that Gateway Overlay District that they have to do, landscaping, and you do on sites anyway, but there's just greater requirements within that Gateway Overlay District. So when we looked at that application, we ended up reducing that transitional yard from 5 feet to 10 feet to 5 feet. And we were wanting to look at an ordinance amendment so that we didn't have this type of application again. So what you can see here with Tidal Wave, and also in their application, they submitted a nice description of what their hardships are, if you had a chance to read that. And the applicant is online too, and I'll kind of just give an overview, and then if you guys have additional questions, I'm sure that he would be able to answer. But you can see here that there's a 10-foot utility easement along the entire north property line, and then that there are 2 fronts along 8th Avenue South and Highway 212 with this property. And then the floodplain covers the southern portion of this property, which did restrict the buildable area that they had. And then he also explains just the different reasons as well on just the site design of why they are asking to orient the building to the east and west, and then having sufficient driving lanes for safety and really comfort for people, for the users.
Hey, Brandy, I have a question for you. You said that on the south part of the lot is floodplain. How far into the lot is the floodplain?
I will pull that up. I think that he said 30 to 40 feet, and that's not...
I believe we have a different study for this one. Is that correct, Brandy?
Yeah.
That would supersede what's
So
showing
the
on
30
the
to
map.
40 feet will be, they're 5 foot or 10 foot, right, for the trees and stuff? And then where the cars drive through, is that going to be in the floodplain too, or are they going to build it up above the floodplain?
They would only be required if the building is within the floodplain, which it is not, and I'm trying to get that layer to work. That would have to be either built up or wet flood proofed. And because it is a car wash, it probably will be built of wet flood proof materials. So they could do it that way with it being commercial. Residential doesn't get that option. And the parking areas, though, could be within the floodplain because we're not worried about we're worried about structures.
Okay, so they'll be able to pull in, pay, and then go around, and where they're paying stuff might be in the flood.
And that, it looks like they pay here. So if they would potentially be driving through the floodplain.
But it's going to be landscape that if we have a water incident, it'll all be gone within a day anyways, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and because there is this drainage ditch, I don't know why this is not showing, but it's really within this drainage ditch is where the floodplain is.
Okay, I have another question. On that lot 1, what's left? Oh, I see it now. Okay, that makes sense. So now where that lot 1 is, how much is that going to leave after that 79 feet is gone?
It will still be a conforming lot. We did
will
check
be?
that. Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
good.
We, the applicant does know that we will require an admin plat to actually create a parcel there, a lot, if you will, and not just a footage description. And we did check to make sure, based on the footage description that was given, that we did have conforming lots. Thank you.
So that thing where it bumps up on each side, are those just regular drainage ditches, like dry water holding pond or something?
No. These areas? Yeah. No, those are just low. And so it's just within the floodplain. And actually, what I'll do, that my presentation is for the most part concluded. So if Blake, if you want to open the public hearing and have discussion.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Open it for discussion if anybody here to speak on behalf or against. Go ahead.
Are you able to hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we are.
Okay, wonderful. My name is Jeremy Christopherson. I'm representing the owner. I'm with RSA, and thank you for your time this evening. Just one thing I wanted to touch on, or a couple points. We are trying to stay out of the floodplain if at all possible, and the site plan that we submitted is with the intention that the curb line that we're showing for the stacking at the pay canopy, there you go, that would be right at the crest of the flat portion of the site before you go into the floodplain. So we are trying to minimize any disturbance in that drainage way by staying outside of that with our paved parcels. And then the second point, for the transitional areas, we did try to minimize the impact in the transition areas as much as possible. On the east side of the site there, we encroach in it a little bit for the radius area to enter into the tunnel wash. There's a minimal amount of paving there. And the light hatch that you can see on both sides of that curved radius drive, we intend to fully landscape that entire area. So that would not be turf, that would be fully landscaped. And then over on the other side of the site, on the west side, we do need a considerable amount of circulation for traffic to move around the building and around the site. So that side, we are encroaching mostly into the transitional space to make circulation work properly. The difficulty that we have on that west side of the site is we need to provide an appropriate amount of space as you exit the tunnel wash so that we don't have traffic being forced into the lane of traffic without the proper ability to stop and let people pass by. Just in the nature of how the tunnel wash works, it's a conveyor system, so everything kind of runs in a smooth fashion, and if someone has to stop inside of the tunnel, it disrupts the operations of the business. So we really need to provide an adequate amount of space outside of the tunnel exit if somebody needs to stop to wait for traffic. So that's kind of what's driving the width of the development on the parcel. And then this here image is it's just a representation of the general aesthetic of the building. We use a lot of stone, glass, and metal on the building. Everything is a nice, durable, low maintenance materials that have a nice high value for aesthetics. Everything's very well upkept, and this one was taken right after the yard was put in, so it's just sprouting grass. But we do have an owner on these parcels that takes very good care of his properties. So you would have a very good established car wash in this location.
Thank you, Mr. Christopherson. Question about the landscaping. So you mentioned a lot of the hatched area is going to be landscaped with vegetation and rock. You're showing 18 trees on the site plan. Is the intention that we would put in at least 18 trees on this property?
Yes, we are trying to show the requirements along both of our front yards, and I believe we're meeting that requirement of the 1 to 40 for linear frontage. And then we are also showing at least 6 other interior trees for landscape purposes. We do sometimes try to put some in around the building, depending on how the site plan works out. We don't have any shown at this time for this location.
So it'd be fair to say that that was like a minimum target for you from a landscaping perspective?
Yes, yep.
And the other landscape elements that you talked about, some shrubbery, that sort of thing, it's not necessarily represented in here other than the hatched areas that you've outlined?
Correct, yep. We use a variety of good hardy plantings, things that'll be tolerable to the locale, things that are hardy to if there's a drought like we've been having this year, things that aren't going to die on us, and are able to be pruned up and kept looking nice all the time.
And the space that would be in the transitional yard, subject to the variance approval, it's not to be used for parking. It looks like this is only for the conveyance of traffic.
Correct, yeah. The stacking area on the south side of the building, that has 3 lanes of stacking for servicing the traffic through the tunnel. And that, I think I submitted a diagram that showed typical stacking in there. There we go. So you can see we can stack at least 20 to 25 cars in that area before we would ever get into the circulation areas. So that's more than enough stacking to be able to serve the needs of the tunnel. The drive lane on the west side of the site is purely for circulation to and from.
By that time, you'd see driving by on Highway 212 that it might be a bit of a wait.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Christopherson. Any additional questions from the board for the applicant? Is there anybody else to speak in the public while the public hearing is open? Anybody in the room or on Teams?
Nope.
All right, hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any additional discussion from the board? Brandy, do we need to take these as 2 separate actions, one for the conditional use and one for the variance request?
Yes.
So I would look to the board for a motion first on the conditional use.
I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use.
Is there any conditions that you want attached to the conditional use?
No, unless you have any suggestions.
I mean, we talked about a few things with the applicant in relation to the landscaping that could be included in there if we would like, the no less than 18 trees, the other landscaping design elements represented in the proposal. the space to be used for conveyance of traffic and not parking. These are all represented on the plan already, but if we want to include them in the conditional use, it'd be the
Okay,
appropriate time to do so.
1 second though, I might, so we do have those requirements in ordinance, and then when we review the site plan, we will make sure that everything, gateway overlay, like I said, has additional or greater aesthetic requirements. So, once we would receive the site plan, that's not actually a requirement to be submitted with the conditional use. So if you feel comfortable with what we already have in ordinance, then we could forego additional conditions.
are you happy with that, Blake?
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Okay.
As long as we've got it covered from the ordinance perspective.
Okay.
If I could just make a comment on, I guess, hours of operation or light infiltration. I mean, as the cars are entering and exiting the tunnel, is there any need or reason for screening on?
Adjacent to the it's all commercial property, so
Yeah, we
That's
do
up to
do
you
have some
guys.
screening requirements in the Gateway Overlay District, but it's when it's adjacent to a residential property, right?
Correct.
yep,
And
that's anywhere.
correct. And so I'm sorry, the gentleman that's here to represent, what are their typical hours of operation? I mean, in the summer, obviously, it's light here till 9, 10 o'clock. Do they have lighting that they'll be open later in the evening, or is it typically more of a 8 to 5, 8 to 6 type operation?
Yeah, I have not had that conversation with the owner for this particular location. I do know that the other 2 locations that he has, I believe the hours of operation are up until 8 p.m. for both of those locations. So I guess I wouldn't be able to guarantee what he's planning for this one, but that is kind of his typical. It looks like, yeah, it looks like.
Yeah,
in
Brady's
Brookings,
got up on the
it's
screen
9
there.
o'clock.
So,
Yeah,
Yeah,
Good
so it
thing we
looks
have
like
that.
in Brookings it goes till 9.
gotcha.
Well, and for screening, the main purpose with that is when it is a budding residential.
Correct.
But when it's commercial, it is a commercially zoned area. So I don't think that's a typical requirement.
And I think we may have something about downcast lighting. Is that correct?
Yep.
Correct. That's my only concern. No, I didn't. I will second.
Okay, I have a second from Jason. Any additional comments or discussion before we take a vote? And this vote will be on the conditional use portion, and then we will follow this with the variance request. If there's no additional discussion, we'll go ahead and take a roll call vote.
All right. Dolly.
Yes?
Spire.
Yes.
Dargis Johnson.
Yes.
Aletsky.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries for the conditional use. Moving on, I'll look for a motion on the variance request.
And can you just say, just for the record, Brandy, how much are we given for the variance?
It will go from it'll be a 0-foot transitional yard on the west side, and then the minimal encroachment into the 10-foot transitional yard on the east side. So that would be really the motion.
You could also say, as shown on the submitted site plan or something like that, but if that changes a little bit, then that may
Well,
make it
just
tough
so
too.
I'm clear, so the next, and not that I'm against, I'm just, again, just want to be clear that the next business and that would go in between him and, well, to the west, okay, of his property. In the event that they needed the space also, both driveways could adjoin, correct?
They'll have curb and gutter there because they'll still have their property lines where if they wanted to, they could. But we really do need to bring an amendment forward for this transitional yard. And like I said, that was discussed in 2019 because now we've seen 2 and this area is developing. And so it is problematic. It was really and then typically in commercial districts, we don't have a setback. The only time that there's a 5-foot setback for parking is when it's adjacent to residential. So it's a constraint for the development of this property. So it's really just a matter of if we bring that amendment forward for Plan Commission and City Council to decide if the aesthetic of having the 10-foot green space is necessary. When, on this site particularly too, they will still have the front and their double frontage green space reserved. And I think that's really where we'd want to see the green space anyway. And just a 10-foot strip, and obviously if both properties are having it, it's 20 feet. But it's also it's inhibiting people being able to use their sites. And then that's just a matter of, if we bring that amendment forward, it's just a matter of you guys deciding if that is necessary.
Yeah, I do think it warrants further discussion as we've developed within the Gateway Overlay District, and it sounds like that was the feedback from the 2019 discussion as well. Do we have anything in the works, Brandy, or proposed to bring before the Plan Commission?
Yes. We can. It needs to be. I mean, because this was something in 2019, that and all of our other priorities that we decided for the next 2 years. But this one should be a simple thing to bring forward. And I think it should, because like I said, this area we are seeing development happening, and we just need to figure out what we want to see so that we don't have to bring each application as a variance request. If it's not working, and we haven't used the Gateway Overlay District very much. So now that we are implementing it, we're seeing where the issues are. And so that's okay to revisit things.
Okay. And just because, I like to, my only fear would be, so the next company comes in, and I'm not saying that I'm not going to grant this, just for discussion sake, when you are planning this and thinking about this, so let's just say that the next business needs all of their lot too. Now all of a sudden we have, and this guy needs to keep his traffic there, so he needs that curb there. And you know how people like to squeeze through businesses. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden you don't see that there's this curb that's only this, it's this wide of a curb. It's just kind of almost a hazard type of thing. So I'm just saying for the next person needing that space too, because it's not that wide of a lot. I would hate to see that we have a curb, a foot curb dividing these two, because that could almost become a hazard. See what I'm saying? Because we all like to dodge between, not get back out into the traffic. See where I'm going with this? Yeah, like we do on 212. I mean, look at by Zesto. I mean, you can run that whole area there. Dairy Queen, Zesto, the liquor store, you could run them all. You know what I'm saying? That's the only thing I would hate to see happen here. Just keeping that in mind, I guess I'm just throwing that out there. So
that's definitely a good point. If I could interject for a moment, with the nature of this business, it is different than quite a few businesses in terms of just having a well-directed traffic flow. So we will have to look at that closely from a traffic perspective and have the engineering staff weigh in on that. But that's a very good point in terms of sometimes green space can serve as that, is that area. Just having that, and the curb itself could, but as you had mentioned, we definitely don't necessarily think that this type of business is appropriate to put somebody right in the stacking lane if they're not intending to go through the car wash. So,
well, I'd like to say that I share that same concern. And a smaller scale, but another car wash in town on 19th. It looks like it was intentionally designed to have contiguous flow amongst the lots. However, their solution now is to put parking cones, which is not very aesthetic. And it can create some confusion when people are migrating through the areas. So I would ask that, that would be my concern as future development wise. And then I'd hate to see a raised square curbing or something like that that was equally kind of frustrating for people that may not be aware it's there and may, going between businesses in the future and, running over a, 1 foot curbing that's raised.
And that's my
I
only
think-
fear, yeah, so.
Yeah, definitely, and thank you for bringing that up, because that is that is what we want to avoid. With the car wash on 19th, I don't believe I was here when that conditional use was approved. I'm not sure of the discussion, but they do have stacking area on their private property, but it's more comfortable for people to then stack over near Dakota Butcher, which that's private, and that's their parking. So I think that's why the cones had to go into place, but that's all within the design. And then I'm sure that car wash doesn't like that they have to have cones there either. And maybe they would look at a better design, but
Yeah, this is a great design. I mean, he's running his entire business on edge to edge. I mean, it works great. So it's just, I'm just throwing it out there for the next business if they need that space too, that we may need to say, might not happen, you know. So,
Right.
but no, so I will make the motion, back to that, to approve.
I will second that motion.
All right, we have a motion to approve and a second. Any additional discussion? All right, with that, we'll go ahead and take a roll call vote.
all right. Hanson,
Yes.
Oletsky,
Yes.
Dargis Johnson,
Yes.
Spire,
Yes.
Dolly.
Yes. That motion for the variance passes as well.
Just as a quick follow-up, we will continue working with the applicant. We'll have a DRT review meeting for other comments, and then plat to get the property platted, and then proceed on to building permit, should everything meet the requirements.
Perfect, thank you. All right, moving on from the regular agenda to the open public comments. Did anybody wish to speak on something that's not on the agenda?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, moving on to the actual new business section. Do we have any new business, Brandy?
None that I have.
Okay, any old business?
Nope.
All right, then I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So motion? Have a second?
Yes, second by Hanson.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned.
All right.
We'll reconvene here momentarily.